to enable government to adapt to the new paradigm. For instance, the issue of building trust between government and the public during the COVID lockdown. So we had to develop digital communication platforms, websites, and applications to keep the population updated on the status of the COVID-19 and measures to contain the pandemic. For example, the social media campaigns updates using Facebook and Twitter, outlining new infections, release of recovered patients, and how to maintain safety, etc., etc. Dedicated website for information on COVID-19. And this has had the impact of creating trust and confidence in government's management and response to the pandemic. And of course, citizens' adherence to the government directives. Then the other issue of access to government information. Now, government had to set up a dedicated COVID-19 call center with over 300 staff where citizens can telephone at any time of the day. They can use application, they can use WhatsApp, they can use email and pose any question and any inquiry. And this, of course, has been made it possible for citizens to access the information that they need, particularly that information that will go towards stopping the spread of COVID-19. And then, of course, the institutional mechanisms for conducting government business. Now, as the Minister of Public Service, we had to issue guidelines or circular standing instructions from time to time, which were enable to the service to institutionalize the new innovative ways of conducting government business. For example, there was guidance and regulations on the use of e-meetings as an alternative to physical meetings. Now, the impact of this has been that government staff are now able to make use of all the innovations and e-solutions available while maintaining adherence to the regulations. Then, of course, making sure that the business processes in government that require, for instance, a lot of paperwork and physical meetings, these are reduced to the barest minimum. And of course, the government agencies had to review some of their business processes to adapt to the lockdown requirements. For instance, in government procurement, this has been regulated to conform to the e-procurement process and the use of video conferencing and submission of bids by electronic means. And of course, this has reduced the movement of paper, the requirement to have physical meetings, and still reduced the chances of spreading disease. And of course, this has meant that in spite of that, public services are still available. For instance, as I said, physical meetings during the lockdown, these have also been reduced and to the e-communication, thanks to the NDP, which has assisted in bulk procurement of Zoom licenses for all ministries and agencies. And we are able now to ensure continuity of government through online meetings via video conferencing. And this means that actually government systems have continued to operate efficiently and to deliver the effective response to the pandemic. And of course, the necessary reduction in physical meetings and therefore reducing the spread of the virus. Now, the question of education. This has also use of e-platforms, the e-learning platforms has made it possible that in spite of the shutdown in the education institutions, the children continue to receive the necessary learning materials. And parents and the children and the students can now access educational materials and documents online. And of course, in partnership with the telecom companies, government has made it possible that there's free internet access to these e-learning platforms so that there is no data cost when accessing these websites. Therefore, the young people, the learners are kept busy and education still continues in spite of lockdown. And of course, when it comes to deliveries of goods and services, again, the e-applications have come in handy. The use of various applications for various goods and services, including food from restaurants, fresh food from markets. And of course, this has minimized physical movement of some of the population to the markets. Now, tracking of truck drivers and high-risk travelers who are potentially exposed to COVID-19. Now, truck drivers crossing borders when delivering goods and services are now the primary channel of entry of COVID-19 cases into Uganda. Now, government has introduced a GPS journey management system where drivers are tested upon entry and are allowed to proceed with their truck. They are routing information to show they could potentially have interacted with the general population. Now, the high cost of mobile money transfers, well, under this path, high cost has been, in most cases, waived. Where it hasn't been waived, it has been considerably reduced. So these measures have worked hard, however, to stem the impact and the spread of the pandemic. In spite of that, there are still a few challenges. Infiltrations coming in from borders from the neighboring, and of course the cargo truck drivers and crews of trains, aircraft crew, and so on. Now, and of course the health workers who are the front line actually facing the challenge of the pandemic. And the government obviously is addressing these challenges by and counterintelligence on to prohibit illegal entry into the country. On the issue of truck drivers, those transiting or destined to Uganda, these stop at designated points and nowhere else. And then, of course, they move throughout the country to other neighboring countries without causing too much that fly in the hotels. And of course, the health workers who are interacting with all these people are given protective gear, and a lot of care is taken to minimize attack. Now, in Uganda, we are trying as much as possible to produce the sanitizers, and the government has been encouraging local industries to produce face masks so that we have them produced at large scale and they're used also on a large scale. Let me also present the government's good public services by the pandemic. Some of the countries, I believe, have already advanced in that respect. They have a high rating in public service delivery, and they're already implementing some of the proposals. Service improvement is continuous, and these are some of the in Uganda. We have first of all to recognize that there is a paradigm shift in customer expectations. The public service customers expect us to be able to transact fully with government in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. And therefore, the levels of service afforded to people all over the world today would have seemed like science fiction. Smartphones and always on internet connectivity has created an environment where almost anything you want is almost only at a click or a tap or swipe away. Now, amidst this pandemic, some applications and services that were previously looked on as just nice to have become must to have. And while value-added services have become hygiene factors. Now, customer expectations obviously are higher than ever and show no sign of declining. And of course, these attitudes are no longer just something of private enterprise to grapple with. There's been a shift in relationship dynamic where customers and governments are concerned. Governments are no longer just a source of information. Instead, they are multifaceted arbiters of help, services and solutions. Now, the other one is the systems to regard citizens. Now, too often online systems have been in a silo. Now, the trend is that all of them are interconnected, and there's no need to engage in multiple or silo undertakings, but we have just one system that is connected. And perhaps the pandemic is a wake-up call. It is time for government services to be re-engineered so that as always top of the mind. Now, this calls for an assessment of what customers need, followed by the building of those services using the right technology. So we need to go beyond co-creation, take the lead, and show customers what futuristic services will look like. Now, the frame of reference for citizen expectations of seamless government services has shifted dramatically. Just nice to a must-have. Governments and the public services need to evolve from being service operators to generators of value. And of course, shifting service models amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Now, a lot of things has to be created and so on. There is need that we must have data protection first. People need to see the value of sharing and using data. Governments today should consider how they can bring data to life through one seamless level of experience after another. Maybe we need to get together as governments to create a global measure of services. Now, perhaps the biggest challenge required is one of culture. Governments will need to make strategic investments in services that meet tomorrow's needs as well as today, creating solutions meet the needs which haven't fully evolved as a priority, but also as a burden. Therefore, making sure that nobody is left behind. I wish to conclude. Now, the future of government service delivery presents both challenges and many opportunities, especially amidst this pandemic. That is a process that starts by gaining a thorough understanding of how people relate to and interact with public authorities, as well as our government's agencies can proactively develop programs to meet the needs of this trying time. As government of Uganda, we are convinced that embracing collective responsibility will help us address the current COVID-19 threat, as well as deliver customer-centric public services. I thank you for God and my country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for that presentation and for sharing with us what Uganda is doing to continue serving its people and to deal with this. We will continue and listen to the fourth speaker, Mrs. Dia Natalisa, Deputy Minister of Administrative and Bureaucratic Reforms of Indonesia. You have the floor, and if I have mispronounced your name, please forgive me. You can repeat it so that we know exactly how it is pronounced. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alvia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. First of all, I would like to send warm regards from the Minister of Administrative and Bureaucratic Reform of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Cahyokumolo. Ladies and gentlemen, in this occasion, I am very delighted to fulfill the invitation of His Excellency Mr. Ulfi Maldiyev. I greatly appreciate the initiative of the government of Azerbaijan to hold this global forum. discussing the initiative of various countries in overcoming the global COVID-19 pandemic. The same initiative has also been carried out by the OECD. They are collecting various initiatives related to COVID-19. They are also mobilizing OECD and also non-OECD countries through the COVID-19 Innovation Forum, which called as Observatory Public Sector Innovation or OPSI. Indonesia is one of the non-OECD countries who have been asked for its contribution regarding innovation of COVID-19 pandemic. The OECD believes that sharing knowledge on how to handle COVID-19 is very important for the welfare of the people of the world. In our point of view, it is very important for us to share our knowledge, experience, and how we implement the action in dealing with this pandemic to our fellow countries. Ladies and gentlemen, data on this pandemic in Indonesia as of May 14, 2020, the confirmed case has reached over 16,000 that got infected and at least 1,000 deaths from the virus. But we are also grateful. To this day, we have more than 3,000 people recovered from this disease. The spread of this pandemic in Indonesia has covers all of our 34 provinces, with the top 5 found in provinces of the Special Capital Region of Jakarta, East Java, West Java, Central Java, and South Sumatra. The challenge to overcome this virus for Indonesia is because we have wide and extensive territory. Indonesia has total area of 7.91 million square kilometers. Moreover, we have more than 17,000 islands with 260 million population. President Joko Widodo has taken significant policies in handling this pandemic, which includes the health, economic, and also the social aspect. First is the health aspect. In this sector, we have taken broad-scale social distancing policy, or in Indonesian language is pembatasan sosial berskala besar. In accordance with the WHO recommendation, all countries have to implement social and physical distancing. However, Indonesia chose not to do the lockdown policy. We still allow social activities, but limiting the scope and amount of people. Citizens must comply the health protocol. This limitation has applied for people to work and do all religious activities at home. The government also limits the economic and social mobilization so that it impacts on economic and social life. The second policy is for the economic sectors. We provide relaxation to various economic regulations, such as providing bank loan relief, lowering interest rates, tax discount, and free or discounted electricity payments for lower income families. We also still provide exemption for the business, especially that related with the logistic or basic needs. The third policy is the social aspect. With the policy of broad-scale social distancing, it has made an increase the poverty rate that now has reached 12 million people. Therefore, we strengthen the social safety network for people who are very affected by this pandemic. Our government support for those in need with direct cash assistance and food aid for the next 6 months. To support these policies, we implement the refocusing and revision of the state budget, which is directed for the hard estimation on this pandemic handling. Additionally, we also provide support for economic sustainability and increase social assistance for residents affected. All of these policies are directly controlled by the President through the Indonesian COVID-19 National Task Force The task force is led by the National Board for Disaster Management. At the local government level, the same organization is formed, which is directly controlled by the governor, the region, or mayor. This task force is formed up to the lowest level of government. In June of this year, it is expected that the number of confirmed COVID-19 curve has to slope downward. Massive reduction can be achieved soon and back to return to the new normal life. Ladies and gentlemen, the target will be successful if the social and physical distancing are carried out properly. For this case, we face many challenges because there are still a small portion of the population who have not realized the importance of social and physical distancing. In Indonesian culture, 2 weeks before Idul Fitri, there is a custom of people returning to their hometown. We call it this mudik or homecoming. This mobility involves a very large number of people. Last year, in 2019, there were 23 million Indonesians returning to their hometown. The largest number came from Jakarta, and at this present, Jakarta is the largest COVID-19 epicenter. This year, due to this pandemic, the government has banned all of the residents to do homecoming. To enforce this policy, the government has stopped all of the land, sea, and air transportation, except for certain limited matters. Moreover, the government built massive checkpoints to conduct raids on residents who want to do homecoming. This action is really important to hold the pace of this pandemic in Indonesia. Nowadays, since COVID-19 became pandemic, government agencies, community groups, and individuals in Indonesia have taken various initiatives to prevent and handling with this pandemic. The initiative occurred as a reflection of the social solidarity and character of the Indonesian people known as gotong royong or mutual cooperation. The Ministry of Administrative and Bureaucratic Reform, through the Deputy of Public Service, has taken the initiative to collect innovations dealing with this pandemic that provide benefit and support the delivery of public services. At this time, we have collected more than 114 Indonesian innovations. One of the public highlights we have now is the 5 COVID-19 innovation from Bangka Belitung province in Sumatra Island. 5 COVID-19 is an application-based innovation that was developed using Google Maps. The innovation offers a scheme called 3T, which is tracking, testing, and treatment. The 3T mechanisms are carried out on COVID-19 for suspected persons and sufferers, specifically on the status of people under control, people without symptoms, and patients under surveillance. Therefore, someone who sees this certain status can be tracked by location, including his movement and his contact with anyone. The application can also monitor anyone who has carried out a rapid test and swab test, including their mobilization. This monitoring is carried out by the province COVID-19 task force, which a dashboard monitored directly by the governor. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is the contribution of thought from Indonesia. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, God Almighty, always protect us all in a world that is more peaceful, prosperous, and civilized. Thank you very much for the attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our Minister, for that presentation and for making us exposed to what is taking place in Indonesia in light of dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic. We will proceed to the next speaker. But before I call upon him to take the floor, let me say what I said at the beginning, that we risk jeopardizing the beginning of the second panel if we don't stick to the time the organizers have allocated to us. And so I would request for the speakers to stick to 5 minutes, and if stretched, not to go beyond 7 minutes. I haven't figured out how I can technologically stop it. In the UN, we are used to switching off the mic, but now I don't even have that ability. But please, if everyone could stick to 5 minutes and maximum 7, that would help. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now, the next speaker is Mr. Michele Parma. I hope I have pronounced that well. He's Deputy Head of the Department for Public Administration, Office of the Prime Minister of Italy. You have got the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much for this invitation. Thanks to the Republic of Azerbaijan. I am very honored to be here and to have the occasion to share with you some considerations from the Italian government about the actual health crisis. What I'd like to say is that public sector modernization processes are occurring now at a very hard time for our country and the entire world as well, when the loss of human lives and the health and economic emergency generate doubts and concern among families and within the industrial sector. Italy, as you know, was very affected by the health crisis and adopted a consistent policy to address the issue requiring social distancing measures and the lockdown of some economic sectors. To offset the economic impact of these decisions, the Italian government adopted measures to support workers, companies, and families in the awareness that it was crucial to limit as much as possible the economic and social effects and allow the economic sector to normalize as soon as the health crisis is mitigated. At the moment, it's difficult to anticipate the duration of the health emergency. However, it's likely in our predictions that it will produce an impact also on 2021. In this framework, we believe it's crucial the public sector is really equipped to tackle the situation. Which are some of the area where we are dealing with? Simplification. In this context, Italy needs to take rapid action and give strong and visible signals by setting a result-oriented government simplification agenda. In order to be effective, as you know, simplification policies need a strong and coordinated whole-of-government approach, as well as the engagement of all administration at all levels. As a first step, we intend to deal with the so-called once-only principle. What does it mean? It means that public administration will not have to ask citizens or companies data and documents they already have or can obtain from other public administrations. This measure is part of a wider approach to make public administration more digital and interconnected. It means giving citizens and business and companies the possibility to interact digitally, thus pushing forward digitalization in the public sector, the real catalyst in our vision for the reorganization of process, simplification, and standardization of forms. Other simplification measures, very briefly, construction sector, other simplification measures in the construction sector to facilitate urban regeneration, measures to speed up the so-called green economy, measures to spread broadband and ultra broadband, measures to ensure maximum speed in accessing benefits, and for companies, administrative and regulatory burdens have to be proportionate to the type and size of the business. Transparency. The government will enhance, our government will enhance legislation in the field of corruption prevention and transparency in public administration. In this field, the Minister for Public Administration, my minister, launched a public consultation that helped collect the comments of citizens on the criticalities of legislation and proposals on how to improve it. Then, the third area, smaller municipalities. Specific initiatives will be taken to support administrative capacity building in smaller municipalities. Italy is a country full of smaller municipalities. This will help ensure the performance of key functions and tasks, also considering the current health crisis. The fourth area, last but not least, is the smart working one. So, by capitalizing on the experience gained during the health emergency, and we remember that smart working is the normal way of managing the public work in this period, I would say that the percentage of public employees involved in smart working will grow from 10 to 30% in the future, facilitating the adoption of a new work arrangement based on the achievement of objectives rather than the amount of hours worked. The wider adoption of smart working will also help work-life balance, making more work more environmentally sustainable and cost-effective, and more generally, I would say, improving organizational well-being with additional measures being taken in the public sector to support it. We believe we need a new result-oriented model for civil service, relying on the central role of employees and enhancing organizational well-being measures, including smart work, that plays a fundamental role. The spread of this new type of work arrangement in the public sector implies rethinking the traditional organization of public labor and its related tasks. I will finish saying that in this context, the government plans to foster greater work-life balance in the public sector and a balanced sharing of care responsibilities between men and women, leading to increased individual productivity, a general reduction of commuting costs, including environmental costs, with additional collective benefits, such as, among others, the repopulation of internal areas. I think to have been very brief, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for that presentation. From the standpoint of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, where I work, as I said at the beginning, we know very well and we appreciate very well the efforts the government of Italy has been putting in developing capacities of public administration at different levels, including parliament and civil service and local governments. So thank you very much for that presentation. It's still, of course, the work now is harder with the pandemic, but I just wanted to recognize the support you have been giving to many countries that I know. We will proceed to, we are going to reserve the last presentation to Dr. Najat Zaruk, because apparently she's having communication or link connecting problems. So let us, before we call upon her, let us call upon Mr. Christian Rupp, the CIO, European Joint E-Government and Open Data Innovation Lab. Mr. Rupp, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and dear colleagues and excellence. It's a great pleasure to be here, and salam to Baku and Teşekkür for inviting me to this session. I will try to share my screen. I don't know if it's possible. Let's see. So hopefully you can see it. Especially during COVID-19 crisis, it showed that the administrative innovation baggets economic innovation. So I had been the pleasure and honor to consult many governments in the last weeks and months, and also the years before, in developing a digital transformation process. And so I developed this magic square of a successful digital transformation. And as you can see, the first corner is always what is technologically possible, or what do you want to achieve by technology. So we see, especially during the crisis, that broadband infrastructure is more important than technologically high sophisticated electronic services. So what does this mean? If you, for example, if you have a low bandwidth infrastructure, it is maybe more important to have an SMS service than to have an highly sophisticated blockchain service. The second corner is always what is legally allowed. And then especially in time of crisis, it is evident that parliamentary decision-making processes can also be carried out digital, for example. The third corner, what is the political will, or is the organization behind already ready for the change? And think in your country, think in your ministry, how many civil servants could or can work in home office? So this has to be prepared, especially during a crisis, that e-government is still possible to work. And the last corner is, what does the customer want, or is the customer involved in the design of the service, so e-participation. So I will show you 4 examples of best practices during COVID-19 that I have seen in the last couple of weeks. So, for example, you need in the field of e-government and secure and simple access to government services. So the basis is for an online e-government service that you have an identity electronic signature. And so, for example, the Austrian State Printing Office has developed My Identity app, an eID platform, and also the Principality of Liechtenstein is now relying on this solution. So eid.li enable mobile phones to be used as a digital ID. So also you can use with modern phones, especially fingerprint and face recognition, but you can use also elderly phones with a short SMS recognition system to use your electronic identity and signature. Another one is, especially during COVID-19, we have seen that to be able to inform possibly infected contacts immediately, it is crucial to know the movements of those diagnosed with COVID-19 during the critical periods of incubation. So the application was developed by Austrian NGO Novit20, and it works with state-of-the-art technology, including Bluetooth for highest accuracy in context to tracking based on telecommunications data. In compliance with the strictest data protection guidelines and on a completely anonymous basis, millions of infections can be averted, and the open source app is available pro bono and license-free to all governments. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, also the Republic of Georgia is now using this app from Austria to rely on memory of infected persons to identify people at risk of infection. Another example is the city of Vienna. So Austria and the city of Vienna are highly developed by e-government services, and the most of the civil servants can use from home during the crisis. But especially during this process, we have seen that not only the crisis or coronavirus not only increases the need for care, but also the need for communication. So every person who has come into contact with the coronavirus must report their state of healthy daily in a home quarantine. So with the app Home Care of the city of Vienna, the daily telephone calls were replaced by an online questionnaire in the app. So this reduces the communication effort and really makes an easy way to communicate with people who have to stay in quarantine during maybe 14 days at home. And last but not least, how to engage, let's say, the community. And I was mentor of the hackathon We Against Virus, and it was incredible what the community can tackle against the coronavirus within a very short period. And if you can imagine the German federal government, this hackathon, the participants created in a digital investment process in 48 hours. They brought together nearly 30,000 people who worked on over 1,500 solutions. So this was really a very innovative, what you can do with open data provided by the government and giving it to startups and to, let's say, to tech companies and students and GovTech companies, and then developing over a weekend solutions for the government how to fight against the virus. So this was a short overview what can be possible from a public administration and from innovative government side, and a crisis security and a resilience through digital services. I think it's a very strategic agenda. It's not a technological topic, it's especially an organizational topic. So during transforming governments through the power of digital technology, it's a journey, it's not a destination. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much for that presentation, which is in an area that is fascinating all the time. Now, moving forward, let me update you. As you know, normally a program is like a budget. You spend what you earn. Even if you had budgeted for a lot, you spend what you have earned. And so what has happened is that Dr. Najat Zaruk, unfortunately, cannot make her presentation because technology has let her down. It happens in these technological moments. We are very sorry for that. I'm going to very quickly in 2 minutes throw back to you what I have heard from you, and then I will thank you, and we close the session. The presentations were so rich. Even with the sharpest ear, it is not very easy to summarize what was presented. But let me say that since 2015 September, when the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted the 23rd Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is an agenda for transforming this world, it looks like the virus is forcing us to transform even at a rapid speed than we had expected. There are many things that are happening, some of them super negative, some of them in reaction to those negative ones, including unfortunately loss of life. Some of them we had not imagined. Some people had not imagined that they will ever ride bicycles, and now they wish they actually had bicycles to ride, because in some countries they stopped moving using vehicles, but you can move using a bicycle. That's one dramatic example. But what I have heard is that the public service is increasingly becoming versatile and adapting to the conditions that have been forced on the countries by this COVID pandemic. Now, you know that we have been fighting to make public services adapt and very versatile. And it has been difficult, but it seems the virus is making it happen. Public services are adapting very, very quickly. I have heard that public services are determined to continue delivering services to the people. And you know that the structure of the public service is built on the foundation of the principle of continuity. In some countries, that's why some public services are not allowed to stage a strike, like to stop services as a protest against whatever they want, because the public service is constructed on the principle of continuity. And I have heard in all these presentations that there is a determination, not only from leaders, but also from public servants themselves, determination to ensure that the services continue being delivered despite the dangers that these public servants are facing. Some of them have died in line of duty. I have heard that there is dire need to be innovative and be innovative very quickly, because sometimes innovation is slow. You take time to think, put together research teams, but this time it seems there is an element of speed in the whole process of innovation, which is not a negative thing. I have heard that there is resilience, and what resilience means is this persistence in doing what you believe must be done. Public servants are doing that, but also this work planning that when this pandemic is over, we will bounce back and bounce forward because we are going to build better. That's what resilience is about. And this principle of resilience is actually inbuilt in the 23rd Agenda for Sustainable Development, because it is supposed to build resilient societies. The other thing I have heard from all these presentations, that there is a need for solidarity globally, that if a country tries to opt out of this, it is opening the rest to more attack. Now, you know that sometimes there is a debate about the usefulness of intergovernmental organizations, the usefulness of globalization, but from what I have heard, this pandemic is saying you better do things together or you will be finished, which is a very, very positive message. I think I've had concern for the public. You know the criticism that has been ongoing about public servants, that they don't care about the public, that it is only the private sector organizations which care about their customers. But what I have heard in these presentations is that there is a lot of care on behalf of the public servants, care for the public that they serve. Now, finally, if you had time to sit back and gather all these presentations and say, what does this mean for a government today? I think I could pick out around 12 things. That the government is a provider. In these times of dire need, the government is a provider, especially for those people who are vulnerable and who are marginalized. Provider of services under all circumstances. 2, the government is a protector of the populations. Whether it is a country is under attack by military means, or whether it is under attack by an invisible enemy like this virus, it is the responsibility of the state to protect the citizens of all the people in that country. 3, that the government or the state or the public service is a unifier. You cannot cause divisions at a time of a pandemic like this, because everyone needs to come together and fight for this. There is a unification. I heard the message that the government and the public service is a communicator, an informer, and an educator, because they are well positioned to understand the enemy that is attacking the society. And this information must be passed on to the society so that the society can participate in protecting itself also. So in other words, this pandemic is forcing us to review and reconfirm the role of the state in society's life. Some of the things we had denied before, like let the government get out of the lives of people. You have had such things because people need to go to it's the private sector and all this. But here, there is a statement that no, government cannot get out of the lives of the people. It's the role of government to unify, to protect, to serve, etc., etc. And I got all this from the presentations as I was listening. I wish I could have them here and I pick all of them. We would get a clear picture of what the government or the public service is supposed to do. This is what I picked out. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin thanking Mr. Mediev, Chairman of SSI, ASAN Services, for putting all this together and then for joining us and making a presentation. We thank you very much. Minister Davletov, Minister of Justice of the Republic of Uzbekistan, thank you very much for the presentation. Honorable Wilson Mururi Mukasa, Minister of Public Service of Uganda, thank you very much. Of course, I have had the opportunity as a Ugandan to interact with you. I wouldn't have had this opportunity without this forum. Thank you for attending it. Mrs. Natalisa Daya, Deputy Minister of Administrative and Bureaucratic Reforms of Indonesia, thank you very much. Mr. Michele Parma, Deputy Head of the Department of Public Administration, Office of Prime Minister of Italy, I appreciate very much. Mr. Christian Rupp, Chief Information Officer, European Joint E-Government and Open Data Innovation Lab, thank you very much. As you know, with the problem with technology that it gives you opportunity and then limits it. We could have gone on and on for a whole day, but now we are in a forum like this, we have got to end. Let me end by saying something which might sound a little bit callous, but it is an unfortunate truth. This pandemic has done a lot of havoc. People have lost lives. People have been isolated socially, something we are not used to. I don't know whether you have heard me telling Honorable Mururi Mukasa that my wife is actually locked up in Kampala. She had gone to visit Kampala and then she couldn't come back. Things like this. It has been a very unfortunate happening and it is going on. We don't know when it will end. But why I'm saying what I'm going to say is a little bit callous is this. Let us not lose the opportunity to use this misfortune to build better public services for the people. When your house burns, it's unfortunate. You lose the house, you lose everything, but in that misfortune, you have got the chance or the opportunity probably to build to design a better house, which you would not think of if the house didn't burn. This is why I'm saying let us not lose the opportunity of this pandemic to build better services. Already I'm seeing practices which we had hesitated to put in place, and now the pandemic has forced us to do so. And so let us continue and do this so that when it ends, we are able to bounce back and also bounce forward and build better. That's what the resilience of societies is all about. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have had a privilege to moderate this session. It has been a pleasure. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you too, Excellencies.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I think the session. Well.